The 6 on my commission sheet was still visible beneath Graham's red slash. He capped the marker and turned the page so everyone at the Monday sales meeting could see the 3 he had written beside my name. "I'm cutting Mara's commission in half," he said. "Her terms were too generous, and I'm reassigning Hearthstone to myself." A row of faces stared back from the warehouse monitor. Colby Vance stopped stirring his coffee. I tucked my blue china marker behind my ear because my hands had started shaking. Before I could answer, the conference room door opened. Simone Reed walked in, carrying the signed Hearthstone order under one arm. Graham stood. Perfect timing. Simone sat beside me, opened the order, and compared it with the revised acknowledgement on the screen. "Why did the 30-day storage allowance disappear?" she asked. "And the cap change order markup? These are Mara's exact terms. I signed them Friday." Graham reached for her contract. Simone laid her palm over it. "I signed the order Mara negotiated," she said. "I didn't sign yours." For one strange second, all I could think about was Sunday dinner, when Graham had raised a glass to me and called Hearthstone the biggest win in Bell Commercial Kitchen's history. He had already known what he planned to do Monday morning. The room smelled like burned coffee and the rubber mats our warehouse manager tracked in from the loading bays. On the wall behind Graham, our pipeline board still showed Hearthstone Hotel Mara Bell in my handwriting. A blue star marked the deposit deadline. Graham eased back into his chair. "Simone, the terms aren't gone. We're cleaning up the language so our accounting department can administer them. Then the acknowledgement should say the same thing as the order. It will achieve the same business result." Simone looked at him with the patience she usually reserved for subcontractors who claimed a back-ordered item was already on a truck. "I don't buy business results, Graham. I buy what's written." Colby lowered his spoon. It struck the side of his mug with a sharp little ping. Graham glanced toward him. "Colby, could you give us the room?" That would have left me alone with my boss and my buyer, which was apparently the combination Graham preferred now that he had crossed out half my income. "Colby is on the sales team," I said. "The meeting isn't over." Graham's eyes came back to me. He had gray-green eyes like his brother Daniel, my husband, but Graham could make his go flat in a way Daniel never could. "I think the account transition is better handled privately." Simone closed the order. "Who's transitioning?" "I'll be overseeing Hearthstone personally." "Why?" Graham smiled. He was good at that smile. It made bankers believe a late quarter was a timing issue, and angry chefs believe a missing fryer was an opportunity to revisit their menu. Mara did excellent work getting us here. The project has moved into execution, and that's where I'm strongest. Simone looked at me. "Is that your understanding?" My throat felt packed with dry flour. I could have said what Graham expected, that we had discussed it, that I supported the transition, that Bell Kitchens functioned as one happy family with matching email signatures. Instead, I slid the commission sheet closer to Simone. "This is the first I've heard of it." Graham's jaw moved once. Simone read the page without touching it. "Your compensation changed this morning too?" "The internal compensation plan isn't part of your order," Graham said. "Agreed, but people who alter one document tend to get creative with others." Colby coughed into his fist. It might have been a laugh trying to save its job. Graham stood and walked to the glass wall overlooking the warehouse. Below us, 2 installers guided a double-stack oven onto a pallet, while Len Ortiz, our warehouse manager, shouted about center of gravity. The building was Graham's pride. 40,000 square feet, 6 loading bays, new racking, and a loan large enough that Evelyn Bell had stopped pretending retirement suited her. "You came here expecting a productive kickoff," Graham said to Simone. "Let's give you one. The storage allowance remains. The change order cap remains. I'll have the acknowledgement corrected." "And Mara?" "Mara will support the transition." Simone waited. I knew that silence. She had used it on a plumbing contractor during a 3-hour coordination meeting. He had eventually revised his bid just to make it end. Graham turned from the glass. She'll remain involved. As account lead? His expression sharpened by half a degree. We'll define responsibilities internally. Simone picked up her order. A clear sleeve held the delivery exhibit behind the signature page. My blue lines ran across the kitchen elevations, arrows through the service corridor, circles around equipment requiring factory startup, numbers for the release sequence. Simone's initials sat beside every note. I release deposits against accountable names, she said. Right now, Mara's is the only one I have. She rose and slipped the order under her arm. I have a construction call at 9. Send me an acknowledgement that matches what I signed. Of course, Graham said. Simone looked at me. Walk me out? Graham answered before I could. Mara has a few internal matters to finish. Simone shifted her attention to him. Then I know where to find the elevator. The door shut softly behind her. Graham remained standing until her footsteps faded. Colby studied the sludge in his coffee. Our estimator, Priya Shah, was still connected from her home office, frozen on the wall monitor with one eyebrow raised. Len's video square showed half his forehead and an industrial fan. Priya, Graham said, send me the Hearthstone estimate with all alternates broken out. I sent it Thursday. Send it again. Same numbers? All of them. Priya's eyebrow climbed a little higher. They'll still be the same numbers. Thank you. He ended the call. Len vanished with her. That left Colby and me. Graham picked up the commission sheet and folded it once along the red mark. You embarrassed me in front of a client. You cut my commission in front of the whole sales team. I corrected a mistake. Whose mistake? Yours primarily. Colby pushed his chair back. I can head downstairs. Stay, Graham said. You'll need context if you're taking over execution. Colby sat again, though his face suggested he would rather have volunteered to test the fire suppression system with his mouth open. I removed the china marker from behind my ear and set it on the table. Show me the loss. Graham blinked. What? The terms you called too generous. Show me what they cost. Free storage costs money. The manufacturer is holding the combi ovens and refrigeration rack until release. Len is holding the stainless package here because we already had an empty bay between the resort job and the hospital cafeteria shipment. That bay isn't free. It's included in the warehouse allocation on Priya's approved estimate. The capped change order markup exposes us. It caps markup at 12% on buyer-requested changes. Our standard is 15%. Exactly. Simone gave us a complete equipment schedule and approved equals before pricing. We traded 3 points on unlikely changes for a signed order before quarter end. Graham's mouth tightened. I continued. Startup calibration is covered by the factory service credit. Rigging has an $8,000 allowance and the local quote came in at $6,200. The phased delivery saves us 2 dedicated runs. I know how freight works, Mara. Then show me the loss. His cheeks colored. That surprised me. Graham usually got quieter when he was angry, as if he planned to invoice each word separately. You sold a complicated project with no room for execution error. It's a hotel conversion, there's always execution risk. And you promised to absorb too much of it. I priced it. You fell in love with the account. There it was, the diagnosis he used whenever a woman knew details he had skipped. Colby looked at the ceiling. I folded my hands under the table. My wedding ring pressed into my palm. You approved the estimate. I approved the margin summary. I didn't approve every side promise you made over lunch. They're written into the order. And that is the problem. The sentence landed more cleanly than the red slash had. Graham went around the table and stopped beside my chair. He lowered his voice, turning the fight into something intimate despite Colby sitting 6 feet away. You wanted the signature so badly that you gave Simone control of our operations. I gave her delivery terms tied to her construction schedule. You gave her the ability to hold us responsible for other trades. The delay language excludes site conditions and third-party work. Which page? Page 14. He opened his laptop, found the order, and scrolled. His finger slowed at page 14. Colby leaned forward. That exclusion's solid. Graham shut the laptop. You're missing the larger issue, he said. I watched him place one hand on the folded commission sheet. He wore our founder's ring, a square gold signet Evelyn had given him when she named him president. Daniel had joked that Graham slept in it. I had noticed the pale indentation under it once, during a summer inventory count, and understood he removed it more often than Daniel believed. What's the larger issue? I asked. The company needs discipline. And discipline starts with taking $38,000 from me. Colby's eyes flicked toward the door. Graham's voice stayed level. 3% on a project you sourced is generous when management assumes execution. I didn't source a lead. I spent 11 months closing a project. You're salaried. My salary covers account development, commission pays for sales. You're also family. The words sat between us like a dirty plate. Colby got up. I'm going downstairs. This time, Graham let him leave. When the door closed, I said, which version of family is useful right now? The one that means I should accept less money or the one you put on the company website? You know that isn't what I meant. I'd love to know what you meant. He exhaled and pulled out the chair beside me. His anger changed shape. He looked tired now, which was more dangerous because tired Graham could make cruelty sound responsible. The warehouse loan resets in 6 weeks, he said. Our margin covenant is tight. One bad quarter changes our rate. I knew about the loan. Everyone did. We'd spent a month moving stock around construction crews while Graham expanded the building, and Evelyn had brought donuts every Friday as though sugar could make debt feel festive. Hearthstone hits this quarter, I said. If the deposit clears and the equipment releases on schedule, Simone is ready to release it. She was ready before this morning. Then why create a problem? Because the project needs margin. You can't create margin by crossing out my commission after the order is signed. Compensation is discretionary under the plan. It's 6% on self-generated accounts above the margin threshold. Subject to management review. Before approval, subject to management review, he repeated. That was Graham's real talent. He could keep saying the narrowest true thing until everyone else got tired enough to let it become the whole truth. I picked up my blue marker. He glanced at it. You know, those lines on Simone's exhibit are half the reason we're here. The lines she initialed? They make informal coordination notes look contractual. They are contractual. You signed the seller acceptance under them. I signed the order package at 11:45 on Friday because you said we had to get it back before her finance office closed. We did. You rushed me. I put yellow flags on every signature page and sent a summary at 4 that afternoon. I was negotiating the Metro State renewal, and I sat outside your office for 40 minutes. His gaze shifted toward the glass wall. I remembered the exact scene. Graham on speakerphone telling the university buyer that loyalty had value while I watched the minute hand move. At 11:38, he had waved me in, signed where I pointed, and said, "Go make us famous." Now the papers were too complicated. The terms were mine alone. The money had become his to rescue. He stood. "I'll honor 3%, he said. "You'll remain available through handoff. Colby will manage execution under me. Simone asked for me as account lead. Simone doesn't choose our staffing. She chooses whether to release the deposit." His face went still. For the first time that morning, I felt something firmer than anger. Graham had expected me to be humiliated. He had prepared for tears, family loyalty, maybe a private plea. He had not prepared for me to understand precisely where the order stood. He gathered the folded commission sheet and his laptop. "Take the rest of the morning," he said. "Cool down. I have a 10 o'clock release call with the hood manufacturer. Colby will handle it. He doesn't have the final curb dimensions. They're in the CRM. They're on Priya's revised submittal. The CRM still has the architect's old roof opening." Graham paused at the door. "Then send them to Colby." "I will. And copy me on every Hearthstone communication." He left, My phone buzzed before I reached my desk. Daniel, Graham says the meeting got tense. Are you okay? I stared at the message while the office moved around me. A printer started. Someone in accounting laughed at something near the copier. Through the warehouse glass, Len was arguing with a driver who had backed into Bay 4 instead of Bay 5. I typed, "He cut my commission in half." 3 dots appeared, vanished, then appeared again. "Can we talk tonight?" I turned my phone face down. My desk held 11 months of Hearthstone in ordinary objects, stainless finish samples, a bent tape measure, Simone's preferred black coffee written on a deli receipt, and a cork trivet from the first restaurant she had opened for the hotel group. Under my keyboard was a printout of the factory release calendar, covered in blue circles. I woke my computer and opened Hearthstone in the CRM. A white box appeared. Access denied. I tried the document folder. Access denied. Then my email refreshed. Graham had sent a company-wide account notice. Effective immediately, all Hearthstone Hotel decisions and client communications would route through him and Colby. My role was listed as historical sales support. Historical. Across the aisle, Colby read the same message and slowly lowered his coffee. "He works fast," he said. "So do I." I pulled the paper release calendar from under my keyboard, uncapped the blue china marker, and wrote the time of the lockout in the upper right corner. At 9:57, Colby rolled his chair across the aisle and stopped beside my desk. "Before we begin our exciting new partnership," he said, "are you planning to stab me with that pencil?" "It's wax." Comforting. I held out the revised submittal. Curb dimensions are on page 6. The architect widened the exhaust chase by 4 inches, so the hood factory needs this revision, not the one in the CRM. He took the pages and read the note twice. "Why isn't this uploaded?" It was in my approval queue. Graham locked me out before I could finish. Colby looked toward Graham's office. The blinds were closed. "Come to the release call," he said. "I've been reassigned to history. You can provide a historical account of why the roof opening changed." Graham joined the call 2 minutes late, heard my voice, and went silent long enough to make the factory coordinator ask whether we had lost him. "No," he said. "I'm here. Mara is assisting with one technical clarification." The coordinator, Janice, had managed hood releases since fax machines ruled the earth. Mara has 14 technical clarifications on this job. Those should go through Colby now. "All right." Paper rustled on Janice's end. "Colby, do you want the fire suppression tanks mounted left or right of the fan controls?" Colby looked at me. I pointed left. "Left," he said. "And are we keeping the welded utility chase at 103 inches? He looked at me again. I nodded. Yes. "Who approved the access panel relocation?" "Simone," I said. "It avoids the column at grid line D5. Her initials are on Exhibit 7. Graham broke in. Janice, send all questions to Colby in writing. We need cleaner ownership." Janice made a small sound that conveyed 40 years of opinions about men who discovered ownership after other people had done the measuring. "I'll send them," she said. "But your production slot expires Wednesday. I need the signed release by 3 tomorrow." "We'll meet it." "Good. Mara, your revised curb drawing saved us from building the wrong chase." Graham ended the call before I could answer. Colby placed the submittal on my desk. That was fun. Wait until someone asks you about remote pull station height. I sold bar equipment for 7 years. My clients cared whether the ice was clear. And now? Now I'm apparently responsible for a roof. His smile faded when Graham's office door opened. "Mara," Graham said, a word. He handed me a printed list titled Transition Responsibilities. I was to forward all outstanding documents, answer internal questions within 2 business hours, and avoid direct client or vendor communication unless invited by him. "You want me responsible for the information without giving me access to it. You have email. You removed the project folder. Colby can send what you need. And every question becomes a delay. Then answer quickly." I read the page again. "Am I still eligible for the 3% if Hearthstone closes this quarter?" His shoulders shifted. A tiny movement, but I saw it. The account has already closed. Then my commission has already been earned. Payment is triggered by deposit and subject to final margin review. That's different from what you said in the meeting. It's in the plan. Send me the current plan. His eyes narrowed. You have it. My copy says 6% on self-generated accounts over 28% gross margin. It says management review occurs before seller acceptance. We updated the language in January. Send me the January version. He took the transition list from my hand, turned it over, and wrote a date at the top. Sign that you received these instructions. I'll sign after you send the plan. This isn't a negotiation. Then you don't need my signature. I carried the paper back to my desk. By noon, Colby had forwarded me 9 emails and asked 13 questions. He apologized after the 8th, then stopped apologizing because it wasted time. Priya called while I was eating almonds over my keyboard. Did Graham tell you to ask me for the cost model? She said. No. He asked for every version of Hearthstone going back to the first proposal. Maybe he's feeling nostalgic. He asked whether the warehouse allowance was added before or after his approval. I set down the almond in my hand. Before. I know. The workbook timestamps know. God knows, although Graham may request supporting documentation. Did you send it? I sent the approved estimate and the version history. Then he asked for a clean copy without comments. Priya paused. I sent that too. A clean copy doesn't erase the dirty one. I looked through the glass at Graham. He stood at his desk with his tie loosened, reading something on screen. For years, I had mistaken his concentration for calm. Now I could see the strain in it. He was not improvising anymore. He was searching for a version of events that would hold. Can you send me the estimate I was working from? I asked. To your company email? My personal one. Another pause. I can't send company pricing outside the network. She was right, and I loved her a little for saying it. Print the approval page for the project file, I said. The actual project file. That I can do. At 2, Simone emailed Graham and copied me. The revised acknowledgement attached to her message restored the storage allowance and change order cap, but the account contact had been changed to Graham. The delivery exhibit was missing. Please resend with all signed exhibits incorporated, she wrote. Mara's delivery sequence was a material part of our acceptance. We will release the deposit after the documents match. Graham forwarded the email to Colby with a single line. Fix this without expanding scope. Colby read it, looked across the aisle, and said, How do you incorporate all the exhibits without incorporating all the exhibits? Leadership. He rubbed both hands over his face. I liked you better when I thought you hoarded information. I liked you better when you sold ice. Before leaving, I stopped at Len's office beside Bay 2. His desk was surrounded by clipboards, spare ratchet straps, and enough antacid to stock a small pharmacy. He was turning my delivery exhibit sideways as though a new angle might improve it. Graham sent this down, he said. Told me to make a clean receiving plan. That is the clean receiving plan. He doesn't like the blue marks. The blue marks tell you which crates can stack. I told him that. He asked whether I could type them. Can you? I can type, do not stack on a plan. The crate will still arrive with another crate sitting on it. He tapped a blue circle around the refrigeration rack. This release date real? Factory's holding it until the mechanical room is weather tight. Colby's schedule says release next Monday. My stomach tightened. That's 3 weeks early. Graham wants equipment in our warehouse before quarter close. The rack is 16 feet long. I've met it. It needs dry indoor storage, and Bay 3 has the country club millwork coming in. I've met that, too. I leaned over the plan. If the rack releases early, we lose the factory hold and start the warranty clock. Len nodded. I told him. What did he say? That sales would manage the customer expectation. A forklift beeped outside his office. Len watched it pass, then lowered his voice. I have room for one of Graham's ideas. I don't have room for all of them. Don't release the rack without a signed factory release. Whose signature? The answer used to be mine. Colby's, I said. Make him own the date. Len studied me. You keeping notes? Yes. Keep better ones. He opened his bottom drawer and handed me a red, hardbound receiving log. The cover was scuffed white at the corners. Old-fashioned, he said. Makes management itchy. I have my own paper. That's a calendar covered in blue crayon. China marker. Royal blue crayon. I left him the insult and took the log. Daniel was cooking when I got home, which meant he felt guilty. He could repair a transfer switch during a thunderstorm, but his culinary range stopped at 4 meals, all involving a skillet the size of a manhole cover. He had chopped an onion into pieces ranging from dust to architectural models. I was going to call, he said. You texted. I mean after I put my bag on the counter. After you talked to Graham? Daniel turned down the burner. He called me. What did he tell you? That Hearthstone's margin got thin and you challenged him in front of the client. He announced my pay cut in front of the sales team. He said he should have handled that privately. That's generous. Mara. I removed the blue marker from behind my ear and set it beside the fruit bowl. Daniel stared at it as though it had been admitted as evidence. How much money are we talking about? He asked. About $38,000. The onion hissed in the pan. He lowered the burner again, though it was already low. I didn't realize it was that much. Would it feel different if it were 5? No, yes, I don't know. He leaned both palms on the counter. Graham says the bank is watching the warehouse covenant. So he told me. That doesn't make what he did right. But he thinks the company's exposed. Then he can show me where. Daniel moved the onions around without looking at them. Sunday is Mom's retirement dinner. Her 3rd retirement dinner. She gets bored. She enjoys cake. She asked everybody to come. I waited. He finally looked at me. Could we keep this out of dinner? Tell your brother. I did. And? He said he wasn't planning to bring up work. He wasn't planning to bring up work yesterday either. He waited until dessert to toast the account he intended to take from me. Daniel winced. I'm trying to keep this from becoming a family war. It became one the moment my being family was used to justify paying me less. He turned off the burner. The onions had gone soft and translucent, defeated by the conversation. What do you want me to do? He asked. I want you to believe me before Graham gives you permission. His face changed. Daniel rarely got angry quickly. It arrived in him as hurt first. That's unfair. So is asking me to make Sunday comfortable. I asked for dinner, one dinner. Paid for with what? He stepped back from the stove. The question sounded cruel once it was in the room. Cruel and accurate were capable of sharing a chair. I picked up my marker. I'm going to change. Mara. I stopped at the hallway. He said, I do believe you. I wanted to turn around. Instead, I waited. But accepting the 3% might be worth it if the alternative is blowing up everything. There it was. He did believe me. He simply wanted the cost of that belief to stay mine. On Sunday, Evelyn's dining table was set with white plates she used only when she planned to insist she had cooked everything herself. The roast came from a market on Franklin Avenue. Everyone knew. Evelyn maintained the lie with such dignity that correcting her would have felt tacky. Graham arrived carrying wine and kissed my cheek. Peace, he murmured. Documentation, I said. His smile held for the room. Evelyn lifted her glass after dinner and thanked us for celebrating her retirement. You'll be back Tuesday, Graham said. Wednesday. Tuesday is my hair appointment. Daniel laughed. Graham did too. For a few minutes they were brothers before they were anything else. Then Evelyn asked about Hearthstone. Graham cut into his cake. We're tightening up the execution plan. Mara got us a strong order and Colby's taking it through delivery. Evelyn looked at me. That's a big handoff. It was big news to me too. Daniel's fork touched his plate. Graham dabbed frosting from his thumb. We're resolving an internal compensation disagreement. Compensation? Evelyn asked. The project came in with lower margin flexibility than expected. I set down my coffee. Which term caused the loss? Graham's pleasant expression cooled. This isn't the time. You brought it up. Mom asked about the project. And you answered by blaming my terms. I said we have less flexibility. Then identify the term and show me where it falls outside the estimate you approved. Evelyn looked from him to me. Was the estimate approved? Yes, Graham said, at a summary level. Was Mara's commission approved? Subject to review. Before or after the sale? I asked. Daniel said my name quietly. I kept my eyes on Graham. Send me the policy you're using. The term you say exceeded my authority and the cost tied to it. Put it in writing. Graham leaned back. For the first time, Evelyn stopped looking uncomfortable and started looking interested. I'll send what's relevant, he said. All 3 items are relevant. His fork scraped the plate. Evelyn took a slow sip of coffee. That seems reasonable. Graham turned to her. You don't have the operational context. Then send me a copy too. The room changed by an inch. Graham smiled again, but the effort showed at the corners. Of course. Daniel drove home with both hands fixed at 10 and 2. You said you wouldn't do that, he said. I said I wouldn't argue at dinner. What was that? A request for documents. You put Mom in the middle. Graham put the company in the middle of the family and expected me to walk around it. He stared through the windshield. My phone vibrated in my bag. An email from Graham sent during the drive. The attached compensation plan was dated January 3rd. On page 4, a new sentence made all commissions subject to final management adjustment until customer deposit. The document properties showed it had been created 48 minutes earlier. I took a screenshot, saved the email, and wrote the time in Len's red receiving log. Then I circled it in blue. Daniel glanced at the screenshot when we stopped at a red light. Maybe he copied it from an old file. Then the old file exists. He'll say the date changed when he exported it. Then the exported file exists. The light turned green. He drove another block before saying, he always thinks an explanation becomes true if it sounds boring enough. It was the closest Daniel had come to criticizing him. At home, I forwarded Graham's email to my personal account, along with the file properties and my original compensation plan. Then I replied from my company address. Please provide the January 3rd distribution email or employee acknowledgement for this revision. My records contain the prior plan, and tonight is the first time I have received this version. I copied Evelyn. Graham answered at 6:12 the next morning. The attached document reflects current policy. File metadata may vary during migration. Further compensation questions should be directed to me privately. At 6:19, my CRM permissions changed again. I could see my other accounts, but their commission projections had disappeared. He was learning. I printed both emails before someone decided the printer had migrated too. Colby arrived carrying 2 cardboard trays of coffee. I come bearing caffeine and a professional crisis, he said. Which one is mine? Both. He put 1 cup on my desk. Simone's name was written on it. She sent coffee? I stopped at her building because Graham wanted her signature on the corrected acknowledgement. She read it in the lobby, handed it back, and asked why the delivery exhibit had been rewritten as seller's preferred schedule. It's not preferred. I know that now. He sat on the edge of my desk. Graham says we need to pull the double-stack ovens forward to recognize the equipment this quarter. Recognize what? The sale. The sale was recognized when he accepted the order. He wants the manufacturer invoice. I took a drink. Simone drank hers black. Mine had cream and half a sugar packet, exactly right. When does he want them delivered? Thursday. The hotel won't take them. Electrical rough-in isn't finished. He says the second-floor kitchen is enclosed. Enclosed and ready aren't the same thing. He called the superintendent. Did he call Simone? Colby looked at the floor. He says site coordination is our responsibility. Simone's terms say deliveries require 48-hour written approval. They also say we provide 30 days of free storage. Now you understand why she wanted both. He drank his coffee, thinking. If we bring the ovens here, can Len hold them? Bay 3 is already committed. He says he can make space. By moving what? The country club millwork. Outside, under the canopy. I set down the cup. Walnut panels under an open-sided canopy in November. I'm reporting, I'm not endorsing. I walked to Len's office with Colby behind me. The warehouse had the metallic chill it acquired every fall, when the dock doors opened more often than the heaters could recover. Len stood beside a taped rectangle on the concrete, staring at 3 pallets, as if he might shame them into becoming smaller. "You told Graham you had room?" I asked. "I told Graham I could make room if he stopped creating freight. For the ovens, the refrigeration rack, and 6 pallets of stainless. The rack too? He sent a release authorization at 5:40 this morning." "Signed by whom?" Len pointed at Colby. Colby pulled out his phone. "I didn't sign anything." "It has your typed name." His face changed. "Forward it to me." Len did. The authorization was an email from Graham to the factory representative. Colby Vance approves immediate release. Route all confirmations through my office. Colby read it twice. "I didn't approve this." "Tell the factory now," I said, in writing. He hesitated. "That makes Graham look like I'm contradicting him." "You are contradicting him." Len lifted one of the antacid bottles from his desk and shook 2 tablets into Colby's palm. "Warehouse benefits," he said. Colby sent the email. Graham reached us before the factory representative replied. He crossed the warehouse without a coat. His sleeves rolled neatly to his forearms. "What are you doing?" he asked Colby, correcting the release record. "I authorized it." "You used my name. As project manager. You said I approved it. I said your team approved it." "No, you didn't." Graham looked at Len. "Give us a minute." Len put on his safety glasses. "Can't hear anything without these." He walked toward Bay 4. Graham lowered his voice. "Colby, this quarter matters. We need the inventory in motion." "I understand that, but Hearthstone has an approved delivery, and the mechanical room isn't weather-tight. The rack can come here." "Where?" "We have 40,000 square feet, and 41,000 square feet of stuff." Graham's mouth almost twitched. Under different circumstances, he would have appreciated the line. "We'll consolidate," he said. "That's an operations issue. Mara says the warranty clock starts at shipment." "Mara says a lot of things." The factory representative replied while we stood there. "Release remains on administrative hold pending site readiness form and buyer-approved delivery date. Freight credit requires staggered shipment per original Bell estimate. Please advise." Colby turned his phone so Graham could read it. That freight credit was one of the cushions Graham said I had given away. Without staggered shipping, Bell would pay for 2 dedicated trucks and lose 30 days of factory storage. Graham handed the phone back. "Fine. Keep the rack on hold. Release the ovens." "They're on the same freight program," I said. "I wasn't speaking to you." Colby looked at me, then at him. "I need her to answer." "You need to run your account." It was her account Monday morning. Graham's face settled into stillness. "Come to my office," he told Colby. They left together. Len reappeared as soon as the office door closed upstairs. "Safety glasses work," he said. The ovens arrived Thursday anyway. Graham had separated them from the freight program, paid an expedite charge, and sent them directly to Hearthstone. The driver called me from habit while I was reviewing a replacement dishwasher quote. "I'm at the service entrance," he said. "They're saying the elevator isn't cleared." "Who signed your delivery ticket?" "Graham Bell." "Call the number on the bill of lading." "Simone Reed." I did. She told me to call the person who knows where the ovens go. My former title had become an industry rumor. I called Colby. He arrived at my desk already wearing his coat. "Coming?" "I'm prohibited from client communication." "Then communicate with me in the passenger seat." At Hearthstone, the old factory's brick walls rose above a maze of construction fencing. The driver had parked beside a temporary loading platform. 2 crated ovens stood at the back of his trailer, each taller than I was. Rain spotted the exposed plywood. Simone waited under the service canopy with a superintendent named Luis and an expression that could strip paint. "Where would you like your ovens?" Colby asked. "Inside the electrical inspector's car?" Luis laughed before he could stop himself. I checked the crates. The moisture indicators were still white. The shock sensors were clear. "The truck can take them to Bell," I said. "They need indoor storage. Keep them upright and don't break the wrap." Simone folded her arms. "And the red livery?" "Bell covers it under the signed storage term." Colby nodded. "Yes." Graham called while we were rerouting the driver. Colby put him on speaker. "We can leave the crates in the second-floor kitchen," Graham said. Luis confirmed the space is enclosed. Luis leaned toward the phone. "I confirmed there are walls. I also confirmed the elevator certification is next week. We can rig them through the west opening. The west opening is getting glass today." Graham went quiet, recalculating. "Bring them back," he said. "I'll arrange overflow storage." He did. Within an hour, he had negotiated a week of indoor space at a flooring distributor, 2 blocks from our warehouse. It cost money, but he solved the immediate problem. That was Graham. He could create a fire at breakfast and obtain a favorable rate on extinguishers by lunch. Simone watched Colby complete the revised delivery ticket. "This is why the sequence was in my order," she said. "I understand," he replied. "Do you?" "Yes." She looked at me. "Do you?" I always did. Her mouth softened, though the rest of her stayed guarded. "Graham sent me a storage charge this morning." Colby stopped writing. "For what?" "Equipment he chose to release early. Forward it to me." I forwarded it to Mara. My phone remained silent. "He removed her from the account," Colby said. "He removed her from his account. He didn't remove her from mine." That evening, the storage charge reappeared as a credit memo. Graham described it in an internal email as a correction, following new site information. Luis's email confirming the elevator schedule had been in the project folder for 3 weeks. I printed the credit memo and wrote its date in Len's log. My commission draw hit my bank account on Friday. It was $1,100 short. Payroll told me Graham had removed Hearthstone from my active pipeline, reducing the advance tied to expected commissions. Daniel found me at the dining table with my laptop, 3 bills, and a calculator. "We're fine this month," he said. "That isn't the point." "I know." He sat across from me. "I picked up 2 overnight inspections." "You shouldn't have to." "You shouldn't either." I looked at him. He rubbed his thumb across a scratch in the table. "I called Mom. My first reaction must have shown. I didn't ask her to fix it," he said. "I asked whether Graham sent her the documents." "Did he?" "He sent a margin summary. No version history, no approval emails." "That sounds like him." She asked the accounting manager for the commission register. I closed the calculator. "Graham will think I went around him." "You copied her." "Graham will think I went around him." Daniel nodded. He knew his brother. "I'm sorry about dinner," he said. "Which part?" "The part where I asked you to take the loss so the rest of us could feel normal." His voice was quiet enough that I had to let the sentence sit. "I still don't want this to tear the family apart," he said. "I just finally understand that you're not the one pulling." On Monday, Colby handed me a flash drive. "I can't take company files home," I said. "It's not for home, it's for Priya. Graham asked me to delete the old project correspondence from the working folder and keep only current documents." "What did you do?" "Copy the original emails into the archive Priya maintains for estimate audits. That's where they belong." "He told me your handoff caused the early delivery." I looked at him. "I saved that email too," he said. My phone rang. Graham's extension. His office blinds were open when I walked in. A folder lay squarely in front of him. He pushed it across the desk. Inside was a separation agreement. Full 6% commission, payable after Hearthstone's deposit. 4 weeks of salary. In exchange, I would resign after the project transition, release Bell from compensation claims, and acknowledge that incomplete handoff information had caused schedule disruption and unnecessary storage expense. You're offering to pay what I earned if I sign a lie, I said. I'm offering you a clean exit. The storage expense came from your early release. We can argue facts until the company loses the client. Simone hasn't threatened to leave. She's withholding the deposit because your acknowledgement doesn't match her order. His signet ring clicked once against the desk. You've made your point, he said. You stood up to me. Mom is asking questions. Colby thinks he's an attorney now. Take the win. My win includes blaming myself. Your win includes $38,000 and freedom from a family business you clearly resent. I closed the folder. What happens to the original commission plan? It gets replaced by a clearer one. And the other accounts you adjusted this quarter? His gaze sharpened. That was an answer. I stood. Put the offer in an email. It's in your hand. I want the version you're willing to send. He leaned back. If you walk out without signing, the offer may change. So may mine. I left the folder on his desk. Simone's email reached all of us before I made it back to my chair. Before Hearthstone releases funds, please provide the complete change history for our order acknowledgement, identification of the authorized project lead, and confirmation that no charges created by premature release will be passed through to us. At the bottom, she had added one sentence. Mara, please bring your original blue mark delivery exhibit to Thursday's cure meeting. Len had taped the delivery exhibit to a sheet of plywood so the corners would stop curling. You planning to steal my wall art? He asked. Simone wants it at the cure meeting. Then she can have it Thursday. I need it Wednesday. He traced the release sequence with one thick finger. Blue 1 through 5 were still clear. Beside number 3, he had added his own note in black. Do not let sales get creative. I'll bring it back. Bring back the version with signatures. The buyer has that one. Good, buyers keep paper better than we do. Priya spent Wednesday morning building a one-page comparison of the approved estimate, signed order, revised acknowledgement, and actual costs. She did it at Evelyn's request, which kept Graham from shutting it down. The free storage allowance appeared in the approved estimate. The factory freight credit covered phased release. The rigging allowance still had $1,800 left. The only unplanned costs were the oven expedite charge and overflow storage Graham had created by releasing them early. Priya set the comparison on my desk. I used small words, she said. Cruel. I use numbers too. He hates when they form sentences. Colby brought the original email confirming Luis's elevator schedule. Janice sent the factory hold notice and freight credit terms. Len copied the relevant receiving log pages, including the time Graham's prematurely released ovens left Hearthstone and returned to storage. None of us had a secret weapon. We had a stack of ordinary documents generated by people doing their jobs. At 4, Evelyn came to my desk wearing a camel-colored coat and the expression she usually brought to inventory write-offs. Walk with me, she said. We went down the back stairs and crossed the warehouse. Len glanced up from a pallet jack but stayed out of our path. Evelyn stopped beside the taped rectangle Graham had intended for the refrigeration rack. I remember when this entire company fit into a space this size, she said. You've mentioned it once or twice. I've mentioned it every time somebody asks me to admire the loan. She looked toward the new racking. Graham had planned the expansion well. The aisles were wider. The loading flow was safer, and our old warehouse had been full enough that Len once stored mixer attachments in the lunchroom. The debt was frightening because the expansion made sense. Graham wasn't lying about the covenant, Evelyn said. If this quarter misses, our rate steps up. I believe him. He expected you not to. He expected the loan to settle every other question. She folded her arms inside her coat. The commission register shows 3 adjustments this quarter. Yours is the largest. Who are the others? I won't discuss their pay with you. Fair. He described all 3 as final margin review. Did the salespeople know before their orders were signed? I'm finding out. A forklift passed at the end of the aisle. Evelyn waited until its motor faded. "I should have stayed closer," she said. That was as near as she came to apologizing. "You hired a president," I said. "You're allowed to expect him to act like one." "He does, most days." "I know." The answer seemed to trouble her more than if I had called him a monster. Graham was her son, a capable executive, and the man who had cut my pay with a marker. All of those facts had to fit inside the same building. "What do you want tomorrow?" she asked. The acknowledgement restored exactly. Me named as account lead through completion. Written confirmation of my 6%, a correction to the Monday meeting record. What kind of correction? That my terms were approved and the delivery problems came from changes made after reassignment. He'll hate that. He enjoyed the original announcement. And after Hearthstone? I looked at the empty rectangle on the floor. "I don't know yet." She studied me, then nodded. "Decide before he decides for you." Simone arrived Thursday with her signed order in the same clear sleeve. Luis came with her, carrying a construction schedule rolled under one arm. Evelyn sat at the far end of the conference table. Graham had invited our accounting manager, Beth Klein, and positioned her beside him with a folder of bank reports. Colby sat between us like a man who had chosen a seat after checking all available exits. Graham began with the loan covenant. He explained that Bell had invested in capacity to serve larger institutional projects, that timely equipment release mattered to quarterly recognition, and that Hearthstone's terms required tighter administration than the original sales review had identified. His numbers were accurate. His explanation was calm. By the end, he had almost turned my missing commission into weather. "We've prepared an updated acknowledgement," he said. "It restores the buyer protections under a unified project management structure." He slid a document toward Simone. She read the first page, then the second. "Who is the project lead?" I am executive sponsor. Colby is managing delivery." I asked who is accountable for the schedule I signed. "Mara remains available as a technical resource." Simone looked at me. "Do you have authority to approve release dates?" "No." "Can you direct the warehouse?" "No." "Can you communicate with manufacturers?" "Only if Graham or Colby invites me." She closed the acknowledgement. "Then she isn't a resource. She's a memory." Graham reached toward the clear sleeve beside her. "Let me show you where the responsibilities are defined." Simone kept one hand on the signed order. "Before you touch this, hear me clearly," she said. "Hearthstone hired Bell because Mara translated our construction schedule into an equipment plan. Your company accepted that plan. Since removing her, you have attempted an early refrigeration release, delivered ovens without approval, billed storage created by your own decision, and circulated 3 versions of an acknowledgement that still doesn't match the order." Beth looked down at her bank reports. Graham's fingers rested on the table. The storage bill was corrected after I challenged it, and the ovens were rerouted at Bell's expense after Mara told you they couldn't enter the building. I made the final decision to bring them back. Luis unrolled his schedule. "You made that decision after suggesting we rig 4,800 pounds of ovens through an opening where the glazing crew was working." Graham turned to him. "Based on the information I had. The information was in my email from 3 weeks earlier." Colby placed a printed copy on the table. "I found it in the project folder," he said. "It was part of my handoff." Graham looked at him. "The working folder contained conflicting information." "No," Colby said. "It contained an old roof dimension in the CRM. Mara caught that too." The room grew quiet. I set Len's plywood-backed exhibit beside Simone's signed copy. The blue lines matched. Her initials sat beside every line on her version. Priya's estimate comparison went next to them. "The terms didn't reduce the approved margin," I said. "The factory hold funded storage. Staggered release preserved the freight credit. The capped markup exchanged 3 points on buyer-requested changes for a signed order before quarter end. The rigging allowance is still under budget. Every term appeared in the package Graham accepted Friday." Beth leaned toward Priya's comparison. "What's this 3760? She asked. "Oven expedite and overflow storage," I said. Neither was in the original plan. Graham's signet ring tapped the table. "We can dissect execution choices forever," he said. "The immediate issue is releasing Hearthstone's deposit." Simone nodded. "That part is simple." She placed a sheet from her folder in front of him. "Hearthstone will release the deposit when Bell issues an acknowledgement incorporating every signed exhibit, confirms that premature release costs remain with Bell, and names Mara as authorized project lead through installation and startup. Equipment releases require her approval and hours." Graham read the sheet. "You're dictating personnel. I'm defining who can act on my order. Staff your company however you like. What if Mara is unavailable? Name Colby as secondary." Colby sat a little straighter. Graham turned to Evelyn. "This limits my ability to manage the project." Evelyn looked at Simone. "If Bell meets those conditions, when does the deposit release?" "Same business day." Evelyn turned back to him. "Then manage that." Graham's face barely changed. I knew him well enough to see the blow land. He picked up a pen. "I want the bank reporting language reviewed before we sign." Beth opened her folder. "I can do that now." For the next 40 minutes, the meeting became ordinary. Beth clarified deposit timing. Luis corrected 2 milestone dates. Colby added an emergency contact hierarchy. Graham negotiated a 2-day response window for schedule changes and got it. Simone accepted language protecting Bell from costs caused by site delays. That was the part Graham was good at. Once he could no longer rewrite the past, he became useful in the present. He signed at 11:26. Simone sent the deposit authorization from her phone before she stood. At the door, she touched the edge of my blue-marked exhibit. "Keep this somewhere he can't migrate it," she said. Len's red log was under my arm. "I have a place." Graham asked me to remain after the others left. Evelyn and Beth stayed too. He set the signed acknowledgement in front of him. "You have your account back." "It was never yours to give me twice." Evelyn closed her eyes briefly. "Mara." "I'm done pretending the language is the problem." Graham looked exhausted now. The sharpness had gone out of his collar, and a gray shadow showed along his jaw. "The 6% will be paid after the deposit clears," he said, in writing. Beth slid a confirmation across the table. She had already prepared it. I read every line. "It doesn't address the Monday meeting." Graham gave a short laugh. "You want an apology in the minutes?" "I want the record corrected. My terms were approved. The early delivery and storage cost resulted from the reassignment." "That's punitive." Calling me careless in front of my colleagues was punitive. "This is accurate." He looked at Evelyn. She said, "Accuracy seems to be having a good week." Beth covered a smile with her hand. Graham pulled his laptop closer and wrote the correction. He read it once, changed miscommunication to management-directed schedule change after I pointed at the phrase, and sent it to the Monday meeting distribution list. Then he looked at me. "Anything else?" "The other commission adjustments. That has nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with why you thought this would work." Evelyn answered before he could. "Beth and I are reviewing them. Future commission changes after seller acceptance require the salesperson's written agreement and a second approval from accounting or ownership." Graham pushed back from the table. "You're taking compensation authority away from the president." "You used it retroactively," Evelyn said, "to protect margin. Then protect margin before we sign." He stood, gathered the bank reports, and walked out. The review took 3 weeks. 2 salespeople received payments they had stopped expecting. The revised compensation plan went out with track changes and acknowledgement forms. Graham kept his title, but Beth countersigned every post-approval adjustment. He also stopped calling Daniel about me. Daniel had told him to. "I said I'm your brother," Daniel explained that night. "Not your hallway. That sounds like something you practiced in the truck." 6 times. "Only 6? Fine. 12. Hearthstone settled into the difficult rhythm it should have had from the start. A fryer arrived with the wrong gas manifold. Luis moved a wall 2 inches without telling anyone. Simone requested a dish table change and paid the agreed 12% markup. Colby became very good at remote pull station heights. Graham and I spoke when the work required it. He remained exact, controlled, and occasionally brilliant. He negotiated a warranty extension on the early shipped ovens and recovered half the expedite charge from the carrier. He never apologized. The 6% commission appeared in my account the morning the hotel passed final kitchen inspection. By then, I had completed 3 interviews with Northline Food Service Systems, one of our regional manufacturers. Janice had given their territory director my name after watching the Hearthstone releases. The job offered a base salary, manufacturer-side project oversight, and a commission structure printed in language that required 2 signatures to change. I accepted. As part of my departure agreement, Bell waived the restriction that would have kept me from working with existing manufacturers. Evelyn called it practical. Graham called it expensive. I called it signed. My last morning at Bell, Len found the laminated Hearthstone delivery plan behind his office door. "Final crate cleared yesterday," he said. He handed me the blue china marker. At Hearthstone, the kitchen was already running warm. Stainless tables reflected the overhead lights. The combi ovens hummed against the finished wall, exactly where my measurements had put them. Simone met me near the service corridor. I circled the final crate number in blue and wrote "complete" beside it. Then I handed her the plan. Her initials were still visible beneath every line Graham had tried to erase.